What's going on, guys? Matt at Middles Motorsports here. Another episode of Behind the Tune. So today on the dyno we have a F-150. So this is a 2022 5-liter, obviously, and this truck came to us with a Whipple already installed. So we added some long tube headers to it. So this is a stage 2 Whipple, and basically all we did, just did the long tubes and a Y pipe. It already had the MBRP catback on it, so it is pretty loud. And I'm doing some tuning on it. So obviously we had to send the ECU out. This is the MG1 PCM that you have to send out. We had HB tuners unlock it, and I am going from there. So the 91 octane is what's being run in this truck, or at least I should say that's how it came into us, with 91 octane. And I put some 93 in it. I did some pulls on 91 and put some 93 in it, obviously, because the 93 10% ethanol we have around here is much better on these than the 91. So dynographs that I have up right now are showcasing that. So the 630 that was the limit I could get to with the fuel that was in it. And I always keep some 91 in the shop here in cans, or some 93, the 10% ethanol 93 that we can get from a local station just a few miles from here. That's really good stuff. And I dumped some of that in, and you can see the difference. So obviously, if we're looking at peak numbers, I was hitting the limiter at 7,200 on the 91 octane. So I can bring the cursor up and we can actually get a comparison. The reason that looks so much higher is because of the extra RPM. So I'm still seeing about a 30 wheel gain. So you can see, right about the peak of the 91 versus the subsequent spot in RPM, about 7,100, 7,050 RPM there. 661 versus 630. So, and I've talked about that before on the channel, how much better the 93 octane is. And a lot of the posted figures you see for these superchargers and guys that do similar builds, a lot of these guys are doing, 90. They have access to 93. Up here in Wisconsin, it's actually pretty hard to find 93 with the 10% ethanol. A lot of the premium pump gas is just straight 91, straight gas, no ethanol, just 91, and it really is not that great. It's really hard to boost an engine on it and make decent power. We're really limited. We see it with the GT500s. We see it with these Coyotes. I see it in the, like the LT4 platforms, boosted factory platforms, LT1s, when we boost LT1s. Any of these late model vehicles with higher compression ratios that you're adding boost to, you really see it there. It really exposes itself how much better the 93 10% ethanol is. The reason I was cutting the RPM short, there's a bunch of transmission limiters and stuff like that, and I was kind of working the tune-up and working on the fueling, and I just hadn't shut those off yet. And now that I had shut those off, obviously I'm revving it higher in the 93. But again, the cursor here is kind of showcasing what the actual gain is between the two fuels. So this is the 91 octane was just me kind of working through the tune. And I hadn't shut all the limiters off. I still actually had the Whipple speed limiter. They set it at 137. This PCM, and I'll share this with you guys. So this PCM, because it's a locked PCM, but it had the Whipple tune on it, and it came to me already tuned with the Whipple tune on it. I just went ahead and shipped it out to HB tuners and had them do the unlock for the Whipple tune. I know that's kind of a cheat code sometimes, but sometimes that's just the way it was. Since the truck already came to us, it already was installed, it already was tuned with a Whipple tune, I just had HB tuners unlock it with the Whipple base cal. So instead of putting it back to stock and then going back and starting over, fortunately we have that option with the Whipple stuff to do that if we have to, versus starting from scratch. Saves a little bit of time for me going through all the VE tables and torque model, to switch it over to boosted application. But so I was still at that 137, 136 something point something speed limiter, and I was just kind of working the tune-up because I was hitting some fueling and stuff like that. So I did the final pull on the 91, and I had made the decision kind of halfway through tuning on the 91, like, I'm going to put some 93 in this thing and see what it can do. And I just hadn't shut that limiter off, or raised that limiter, I should say, all the way up yet. So I just hadn't gotten into the transmission. There's also some, like, in Ford transmission strategy, they have, for the 10 speeds, they have like sun gear and planetary gear and shell and all these different RPM limits for the transmission internal components. And I just hadn't gone in and raised any of that stuff up, and it's all kind of hits a spot right there. It's, you know, when you're in 6th gear with this truck, it all kind of hits that spot at about that 135, 136 mile an hour zone. And so for the 93 tune, since I had the fuel kind of cleaned up and the timing where I wanted it for the long tube headers, I'd gone in and shut that off, and I have this truck shifting at about 7,200 just for reliability's sake. I could raise it a little higher. I don't know if I really like sending this stuff out unless somebody is saying, hey, I raced this truck, I want the maximum out of it. So I usually have them shifting in the low 7,000 area. But I set the limiter at 7,500. That's kind of where my peak comfortable point for a Gen 4 Coyote truck engine like this. Reason being, the boost really starts to climb up here, and I just don't like leaning on these trucks too hard, especially, again, because he probably will put 91 back in it. A lot of guys don't want to chase the 93 around, and they just pull up to whatever fuel station they have near them, and most likely that's going to have 91 octane. So I'm very conservative with this stuff when 91 octane is in play. So I'm going to set the camera down and do one more pull on this thing, and then we'll take a look at data log, and we will wrap this dyno session up for this truck, and then I'll get it out on the road and kind of do some finalization on the trans tuning for shift points and shift characteristics, and I'll get this one wrapped up. Alright guys, a little more heat in it that run than that previous run at 675 or 676. So we ended up about 15 less, I should say. We had about 15 degrees more, i.e. manifold temperature. So didn't add as much timing up in the top as the previous run. But regardless of that, I'm still happy with these numbers. Really happy with these numbers. So this is basically, like I said, this is a stage 2 Whipple kit. We did not change the pulley. It's this the 3.875 pulley. And I'm seeing about, and another thing I will say about this is the older Gen 5 Whipple, so it's not even a Gen 5X. This is just a Gen 5. So, from where this blower is and what this blower is, there's actually 2 generations. Whipple has gone up to a Gen 5X, and now we are at the Gen 6 Whipple. So, this is the Whipple that's a little bit older, a few years older than what is currently available from Whipple. So the reason I'm mentioning that is this same combination in especially a Gen 6 Whipple with this RPM I'm turning up here, 7,500, we would probably be up over 12 pounds of boost, and I'm just over 10 pounds of boost with this charger. So for the boost we're at, I'm happy with the result here. Curves look really nice, and yeah, this turned out really nice, and I think it sounds awesome. It's very loud. You might be able to tell from the video. Usually these DJI mics don't clip, so hopefully you get an idea from that Dyno Pull as to how loud it is. But I think it sounds really good. So data log we'll take a look at. Jump in the truck here. And okay, so yeah, first we'll start out boost. You can see right there 7,400, 169 kPa. So we're that's a little maybe closer to 11 pounds of boost. But like I was saying, with a with like the new Whipple, the Gen 6 Whipple, at this RPM, we would easily be touching 12 pounds of boost. I think I did a Mach 1 a month or two ago with a Gen 6 blower on it with headers, and we were over 12 pounds of boost at 7,500 with that. It was a manual transmission car. And the Mustangs have a little bit larger camshafts, so they process more air. They process the air through the engine a little more efficiently. So on a truck with smaller cams, the trucks will actually see a little higher boost levels. The current Gen 6 Whipple ships with a 4-inch pulley because of that. So I just like to, try to keep this stuff relevant, because there's a lot of this stuff out there on the internet and a lot of videos and a lot of literature, and you can read a lot of stuff on, all the social media about. Obviously, these F-150s are extremely popular. A lot of people are doing stuff with them. So when you're trying to compare what I got going on with this one, just keep that in mind, that it is an older Whipple. It is a Gen 5, and these do not grab as much air and do not make as much boost as the newer ones. Even a Gen 5X will make a little bit more boost than what we are seeing here. So just keep that in mind when we talk boost. Timing, got kind of a, because we have this rising boost curve, obviously I got to have the timing kind of roll off towards the top. I hate to have to do that, but hey, it is what it is, and I got to give the truck what it wants. So mid-range timing is pretty strong. Again, this is on the 93 octane. On the 91 octane, through the timing here, I was probably 2 to 3 degrees less timing. Yes, when comparing this, I know for a fact up top here where we're seeing 18 degrees, I was on the 91, I was seeing 15. The mid-range, I was probably about 16 to 17 degrees of timing. Here I'm almost 21, so that's even about a 4-degree higher number. And when we look at those dyno curves again, there's 10 more foot-pounds of torque in the mid-range. And again, that 93, 10% that's in the tank now, big difference between the two. So, but that's where we ended up on timing. That's about all I wanted to see. Obviously, the HDFX system is adding some here. You can see that, again, when I'm doing, there's 2 ways to log, and sometimes you'll watch videos of guys that are tuning these things, tuning Ford specifically, and when they talk knock correction, there's 2 ways to view it in HB Tuner's scanner. You can view it as it pulling timing or adding timing, which is how I'm viewing it. So a positive amount is adding, a negative amount is pulling, or you can view it as knock, just straight knock. So if it's knocking a degree, it's pulling a degree. So there's 2 ways to view it. I like viewing it, since the PCM will add or subtract, I like viewing it in that fashion. And so that channel here is actually this. You can see it's labeled as knock correction plus advance / minus for retard. And again, if you guys can see that, hopefully, I'll try to get it to pop in. Yeah, right there where it says that. So there is 2 ways to view it. I see a lot of tuning videos where guys talk about that with these Coyotes and the Ford platforms, and how they always say, oh, well, knock will show up positive. Knock will actually be pulling timing. Yes, you can view it like that, but you can also view it like this, and this is how I like to view it. So you can see that we are adding timing. The HDFX system is actually adding. On the 91 octane, it was actually pulling half a degree to a degree pretty much through the whole pull. So basically what's going to happen is if he switches between these 2 fuels, it's either going to have a little bit of a degree, and it'll learn, this is the short term. It will actually, the system will learn it and then just put it as basically put it as the nominal. And, but the 93, we are adding timing. So, and this is set up to add up to 4 degrees. It will add up to 4 degrees all the way up to whether it hits the MBT. This particular setup, I have the cylinder pressure table as the low point for timing. So that is this table, the cylinder pressure limit. This is where I've set in this strategy. I've set this to be the low point. So, and I feel like this is a good safe place to be, even if you were to get some really good fuel, or you can do this on these, which a lot of guys do, is you can actually put a couple gallons of ethanol, E85, in these cars and these trucks, Mustangs included, on these platforms, and this system will add timing. The HDFX system will add timing, and the closed loop fueling will add fuel. I often will have that discussion with the customers to give them that option. If they want to mess with it, and if they seem competent enough to be able to say, okay, I'm going to put 3 gallons per tank or whatever, 3 to 4 gallons per tank. A lot of guys don't want to mess with that, so they're just going to put in whatever's at the pump, and typically that's how I tune them. So they're just safe to put 91 in them, and away you go. Fueling. Okay, so this truck is adding a little bit of fuel, obviously. I was going to go do some street pulls with it, but the air fuel looks pretty good. The trims are adding a little bit more fuel than I like to see, so I got to add a little bit onto the speed density model. But my air fuel ratio curve looks really good. So it's pretty much just going to be kind of a global add, probably map. I think it's map points 5, 6, 7, and 8. Anything above about 4,000 RPM, I'm going to have to add some, 5% or so of fuel. I got long-term here, short-terms are down here. So they're adding a little bit of fuel kind of throughout the top end here. They're adding about 8%, 7 or 8%, which is a little bit more than I like to see. I like to see the fuel trims plus or minus 5 at the very most. So I'm going to add a little bit more fuel onto the slopes, and I wanted to get it out on the street and go do some pulls on the street with it and make sure that the fueling looks good on the street, running it through the gears. So otherwise, everything else, obviously the timing curve looks really nice. We don't have any crazy spikes or anything going on with the knock sensors, so the curve looks good. Everything else looks good. Boost line looks really good. Obviously the throttle's staying open. I don't know that there's really anything else that I would want to talk about on this. The Whipple strategy, they kind of change some of the fueling around. Obviously you have to do that with the dual injection on these direct and port injectors. So they will obviously change and I'm just kind of thinking while I'm talking here. Sorry guys if I sound like I'm slow, but anyway, I was getting at the blending here. So they changed some of these tables so it's blending in more of the port injection versus the DI. The NA stuff pretty much runs on all DI injection when you're at wide open throttle. The DI injectors would not support obviously the Whipple fueling demand, so you have to blend in. Pretty typical for adding boost onto a Coyote. I don't know that there's oxygen sensor stuff. I changed the transport delay. Obviously you're moving the oxygen sensors about double the distance from the cylinder heads, and that's what that's for. So there's just adding long tubes. Obviously there's not a ton to change, but fueling is definitely one of them. When you put long tubes on the Mustangs, even a GT500, when you put long tubes on it, you have to add quite a bit of fuel to them. Typically at least 5%, but even in the case of this truck, and the reason the fueling is a little bit lean too is going from the 91 to the 93 was about a 3% difference in fueling. So I was right around that mark of 5% on the short terms. But when I went to the 93 with the 10% ethanol, it's leaned up there. You can see 7.8, 7.8. I'm looking at short terms right here. And towards the top end, it's coming back down kind of in the realm, but just kind of in this upper mid-range here from about 5,000 to 7,000 or so. I'm going to have to add a little bit of fuel. But yeah, not a big deal. That's easy to do. I can throw some fuel at it up there. Timing curve is I'm going to leave it alone. Again, so he can run the 91 octane, and again, 91 octane it was pulling about a half a degree typically throughout the run here, on average, I should say. Otherwise, everything else looks really good. Not a whole lot you can do with the Cam angles, I did mess with that a little bit. I have messed with it on these before. And sometimes when you're trying to push the limits of these things, you can kind of, typically you advance the exhaust and retard the intake cam as you pull up the RPM. Sometimes you can kind of leave them in more overlap, and it helps bleed some of the boost off the top. And it's kind of it can kind of be it depends on the application. Some of the other, like the Mustangs, respond to that pretty well. But sometimes there's just not a lot of, I don't see a lot of gain with them. This particular truck, I was messing with that, and I was not really seeing much of a gain on it. Because you're also, while doing that, you are bleeding some of the boost off, but you're also making the engine less efficient. So bleeding the boost off allows more timing. But you're also bleeding boost and making the engine less efficient, for what it wants to see to make horsepower. So it kind of just is a wash. You mess with that, and it usually doesn't get you anywhere. Some of the other applications, like sometimes you see it on like ProCharge stuff, where you're really getting like a, and I shouldn't say that, because the Gen 6 Whipples are a little bit different in that, where they really want to ramp boost up at the top here. And I was also going to mention like a ProCharger or an ESS, where the boost curve is just kind of a straight up line. Those respond better to that type of tuning strategy, because you're every 200-300 RPM, when you're up at the top, you're picking up a pound of boost. So there, if you're just going to run into a limit on boost when you're trying to make some fat mid range with a specific pulley combination, you're gonna get up near the top, and the boost is just going to take off on you, and the timing is going to just completely dip, and the power is going to kill, because the boost and the timing is going to win as far as losing power versus gaining it over the boost, and gaining power with the boost. And so if you can bleed some of that boost off with some cams, kind of cheating the cam angles a little bit. This particular blower, because you can see the boost curve is pretty flat from about 4,500 up, we're only picking up, maybe a pound-ish of boost from the mid-range to the top. We're only gaining a pound of boost, so there really wasn't a whole lot I could do there as far as trying to bleed the boost off without just killing the power with making the cam timing inefficient. But again, like a Gen 6 Whipple, you can do a little bit of that, because the Gen 6 Whipples will make more of a ramping boost. When I talk, they make more boost up. They make more boost is because they make more boost up top. Again, a Gen 6 Whipple with the same combination, we'd probably be in the 13 pound of boost range versus the 10 pound of boost range, and most of it would be from gaining from about here up to here. So there, the cam angles on this truck would be a little bit different for pump fuel. But on this particular application with this Gen 5 blower, it's having the cam angles basically kind of do their thing, where you're advancing the exhaust a little bit and retarding the intake a little bit as you sweep through the RPM. It's not doing it a whole lot, but yeah. Just different tuning strategies for different combinations, and that's why we do this. That's why we put them on the dyno, and we test, and we want to look at dyno graphs and data logs and go through this stuff, so we can kind of get the most out of each particular combination, because everything is a little bit different with everything that's out there these days for these trucks, and just the Coyote platform in general. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the dyno portion of this. I'm going to get this thing unstrapped. It's getting kind of late in the day for me to drive this thing around tonight yet, so I'll probably do that in the morning. But I'm going to just bring up that second to last run there, so you guys can just kind of take a look at that final run. I should say the best of the 393 pulls. So yeah, this is the third 93 pull, and yeah, that's looking really good. Nice curve. Obviously, we could turn more RPM on it, but I'm not so comfortable on something that's street driven, cranking this thing 8,000 RPM. I don't think that's necessary. So I'm going to have it shift right about where I had it, the RPM stop there in the dyno, maybe just 100 RPM before, about 7,200. And yeah, this will be a fun ride. So that'll wrap it up for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. And like always, check back on our social media for new videos and new content. And we'll talk to you guys later.